27 years of marriage ended with a 30-second phone call. My wife's voice didn't hold sadness or regret, only the cold, sharp edge of victory. She told me she'd inherited millions, and then she said 5 words I'll never forget. Get out of my house. She thought she'd finally won. She had no idea that I'd been a precision machinist for 3 decades. In my world, a measurement off by a fraction of an inch ruins the whole piece. And Brandy? She was about to find out just how many details she'd missed. My name is Henry, and for most of my life, I believed in quiet work and simple truths. I believed that if you showed up every day, did your job well, and stayed loyal to the people you loved, things would work out. I spent 30 years shaping metal, working with machines that demanded perfection. There was no room for guesswork in my world. Every cut, every angle, every measurement had to be exact. But life isn't like that. Looking back now, I realize the signs were always there. Small things at first. Easy to ignore. Brandy staying on her phone longer than usual. Smiling at messages she never shared. Becoming distant, like she was slowly stepping out of a life we built together. First, I told myself it was normal. 27 years is a long time. People change. Maybe she just needed space. But deep down, something didn't feel right. That Tuesday started like any other day. I left for work early before sunrise like I always did. The house was quiet. Brandy didn't even say goodbye. She just stayed in bed, turned away from me. I remember standing at the door for a moment, watching her back. I almost said something. Almost asked her what was wrong. But I didn't. That was my mistake. When I came home that evening, the house felt different. Too quiet. Too still. Like something had already happened and I was the last one to know. The kitchen lights were on. There was a stack of papers sitting neatly on the table. Brandy was standing near the window, arms crossed, her posture stiff. She didn't look at me when I walked in. "Henry," she said, her voice flat. "We need to talk." I already knew. You don't stay married for nearly 3 decades without recognizing that tone. I put my keys down slowly and walked toward the table. The papers were arranged perfectly, almost like they were part of a presentation. Divorce papers. At least that's what they were supposed to be. I didn't touch them right away. Instead, I looked at her. "Is this what I think it is?" I asked. She finally turned to face me, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes I had never seen before. Not sadness. Not anger. Something colder. "Yes," she said. "It's over." No emotion. No hesitation. Just done. I picked up the papers and flipped through them. It didn't take long to realize something was off. There were no official stamps. No case numbers. No signatures from any court. Fake. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a legal move. This was a power move. She didn't want a process. She wanted control. "You didn't even file these," I said calmly. Her jaw tightened for just a second before she recovered. "I don't need to," she replied. "I'll have real ones ready soon. These are just to make things clear." Clear. That word stayed with me. As if 27 years of marriage could be erased with a stack of printed pages and a cold tone. "And what exactly is clear?" I asked. "That you need to leave," she said. "This house is mine now." There it was. Not our house. Her house. I leaned back slightly, studying her the same way I would study a piece of metal before cutting it. Looking for flaws. For hidden stress points. "What changed?" I asked quietly. For a moment she didn't answer. Then slowly, a small smile appeared on her lips. "I got what I deserved," she said. And then she told me. Her uncle Raymond had passed away, and he had left her everything. Properties. Money. Assets. Millions according to her. As she spoke, her voice changed. It wasn't cold anymore. It was proud. Victorious. Like she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "I don't need this life anymore, Henry," she said. "I don't need you." That should have hurt. And maybe part of me did feel something, but not the way she expected. Because 2 weeks earlier, I had received a phone call. Call she didn't know about. Her uncle Raymond had reached out to me from his hospital bed. His voice was weak, but his mind was sharp. He didn't talk about money. He didn't talk about inheritance. He talked about Brandy. "She's not who you think she is," he told me. At the time, I didn't want to believe him. But he insisted. "Watch closely," he said. "And whatever you do, document everything." That was the last conversation we ever had. Standing there in the kitchen, listening to my wife talk about her victory, those words echoed in my mind. Document everything. So I did something Brandy didn't expect. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg her to reconsider. I simply nodded. "Okay," I said. She blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Okay?" she repeated. "Yes," I said calmly. "If that's what you want." For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. She had expected a fight, an emotional reaction, something messy, but I gave her nothing. Because in my world, you don't rush a process. You measure. You observe. And then, when everything is aligned, you make the cut. That night, I packed a small bag and left the house without another word. But I wasn't walking away. I was stepping back. And from that moment on, I started paying attention to every detail, every transaction, every message, every move she made. Because Brandy thought she had already won. But she didn't understand something important. In precision work, the smallest mistake can destroy everything. And she had already made several. The first night away from the house felt strange, but not in the way most people would expect. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even heartbroken. What I felt was clarity. For the first time in years, there was no noise around me. No tension. No quiet distance sitting between two people pretending everything was fine. I checked into a small, simple motel on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Just a bed, a desk, and a window overlooking a dim parking lot. It was enough. I placed my bag down, sat on the edge of the bed, and took a deep breath. Then I pulled out my laptop. If there was one thing my career had taught me, it was this: truth lives in the details. And details don't lie. Brandy thought this was just a separation, a quick exit, a clean break where she walked away with everything. But she forgot something. I had access, not just to our shared accounts, but to years of financial records, tax returns, statements, patterns. And patterns always tell a story. I started with the last 12 months. At first, everything looked normal. Groceries, utilities, mortgage payments, small everyday expenses. But then I noticed something. A transfer. Not large enough to raise alarm immediately, but not small either. I leaned closer to the screen. Then I saw another one. And another. Same destination account. Different dates. Always spaced out just enough to avoid attention. That's when my instincts kicked in. This wasn't random. This was calculated. I expanded my search. 2 years. 3 years. 5 years. The deeper I went, the clearer the pattern became. Money had been leaving our accounts. Slowly, quietly, consistently. Like a leak no one noticed until the damage was done. By the time I reached 7 years back, I stopped and stared at the total. $243,000. Gone. Not spent. Not invested. Transferred. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to stay calm. Emotion clouds judgment. And I needed precision. I tracked the destination account. It didn't take long to find the name connected to it. Her mother. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling. 7 years. 7 years of lies, hidden behind normal days, shared meals, and quiet evenings. And I never saw it. But that wasn't the worst part. Not even close. The day of the probate hearing arrived quietly, almost like any other morning. But I knew better. Some days don't announce themselves with noise. They just carry weight. I woke up early out of habit. The motel room was still dim, the first light of morning barely touching the curtains. For a moment, I sat on the edge of the bed, letting everything settle in my mind. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about truth. And truth has a way of revealing itself when people least expect it. I dressed simply. Clean shirt, dark pants, nothing flashy. I wasn't there to impress anyone. I was there to observe, to listen, to confirm everything I already suspected. When I arrived at the courthouse, Brandy was already there. She stood near the entrance, dressed in a sharp, expensive outfit. Confident, composed, like someone stepping into a future she believed she owned. For a brief second, her eyes met mine. And there it was again, that same look. Superiority, like I was already behind her. She didn't say a word to me, just turned away slightly, as if my presence no longer mattered. I didn't react, because in that moment I saw something clearly. She wasn't cautious. She wasn't careful. She was comfortable, and comfort makes people careless. Inside the courtroom, everything felt structured, controlled, the exact kind of environment where emotions don't matter, only facts do. The lawyer stood at the front, documents neatly arranged. Brandy sat confidently, her posture straight, her attention fixed on what she believed would be her victory. I took my seat quietly. Then the reading began. At first it sounded exactly like she expected. Raymond's properties, assets, accounts, all listed in formal legal language. Brandy's expression softened slightly, almost satisfied. But then the tone shifted. Primary beneficiary, the lawyer read, subject to the following conditions. That word, conditions, hung in the air. I saw Brandy's posture stiffen just a little. The lawyer continued. The properties could not be sold. The rental prices could not be increased. Major financial decisions required oversight. And then the final detail. An appointed observer. Me. For the first time, Brandy turned fully toward me. Her expression wasn't confident anymore. It was confused. What does that mean? She asked sharply. The lawyer remained calm. It means, he explained, that Mr. Henry will ensure all conditions are followed. Any violation could result in legal consequences, including loss of control over the estate. Silence filled the room. Heavy, unavoidable. The millions she had been celebrating suddenly looked very different. Not freedom, responsibility, restrictions, pressure, a system she couldn't bend. I watched her carefully, the way her fingers tightened, the way her jaw clenched, the way her confidence started to crack. That was the moment she realized something. This wasn't a reward. It was a structure, and she wasn't fully in control of it. But the hearing wasn't over. Not even close. After the formal reading ended, the lawyer approached me privately. There's something else, he said. He handed me a sealed envelope. Mr. Raymond wanted you to have these. I looked down at it for a moment before opening it. Inside were letters. Several of them. Each one dated. Each one written in careful, deliberate handwriting. I didn't read them there. I already knew they mattered. And some things deserved to be understood fully, not rushed. Meanwhile, across the room, Brandy was arguing quietly with the lawyer. Her voice low but tense. This wasn't what he promised, she insisted. The lawyer didn't react. This is what he arranged, he replied simply. There was no emotion in his voice, just fact. And facts don't bend to expectations. By the time we left the courthouse, the air between us had changed completely. Brandy no longer looked at me with victory. She looked at me with something else. Suspicion. 'Cause now, I wasn't just her husband. I was part of the system controlling her future. But she still didn't know everything. Not yet. That evening, I returned to the motel and sat at the desk. The letters were in front of me. I opened the first one slowly. Raymond's words were direct, honest, and heavy. He wrote about Brandy, about her behavior over the years, about things he had seen, and things he had confirmed. Then I opened the second letter. And that's when everything shifted again. There was a name. Derek. My best friend. Or at least, the man I thought was my best friend. Raymond didn't soften the truth. He laid it out clearly. A relationship. Not recent. Not short. A decade. 10 years. I stopped reading for a moment. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I needed to breathe. 10 years. That meant shared holidays, shared dinners, shared memories. That now meant something completely different. I picked the letter back up. There was more. Much more. The third letter contained documents. Printed. Precise. A DNA report. Dated 23 years ago. My hands went still. I already knew what it was before I fully read it. But I read it anyway. Because denial doesn't change facts. It confirmed what I never thought I would question. Emily, my youngest daughter, not biologically mine. The room felt smaller suddenly, quieter, but strangely not heavier, because something unexpected happened in that moment. I didn't feel anger toward her. I didn't feel distance, because biology doesn't erase years. It doesn't erase bedtime stories, school events, laughter, conversations, love. And that's what mattered. I placed the papers down carefully and leaned back. Everything was clear now. Every piece, every detail, every hidden truth. Brandy thought her biggest secret was the money, but it wasn't. And soon all of it would come to light. Not through chaos, not through revenge, but through something far more powerful. Truth. And once truth is exposed, there's no controlling what comes next. I didn't rush after reading the letters. That was the difference between who I used to be and who I had become. Before I would have reacted, confronted, let emotions take control. But now, I understood something important. When the truth is heavy enough, you don't need to force it. You just need to let it unfold. The next step wasn't about Brandy. It was about my daughters, Mia and Emily. They deserved the truth, but more importantly, they deserved the right way to hear it. So I called them, not together, separately, because I wanted to understand where they stood. Before I said anything, Mia was the first to answer. Her voice carried tension the moment she heard mine. "Dad, what's going on?" she asked. I kept my tone calm. "I just want to talk," I said. "Nothing else." There was a pause, then she agreed to meet. Emily was different, softer, more hesitant, but she said yes too. I arranged to meet them the following evening at a quiet cafe. Neutral ground. No pressure. No sides. When I arrived, Mia was already there. Sitting straight. Arms crossed. Watching the door like she was preparing for something difficult. Emily came a few minutes later. She looked nervous, but when she saw me, her eyes softened. That didn't change. Not even after everything. We sat together. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Mia broke the silence. "Mom says you're trying to take everything from her," she said directly. I nodded slightly. "That sounds like something she would say," I replied. Emily looked between us, uncertain. "Is it true?" she asked quietly. I leaned forward, placing my hands calmly on the table. "No," I said. "But I am making sure the truth is clear." Mia's expression didn't change. "So what's the truth?" That was the moment. Not for everything, but for enough. I reached into my folder and placed a few documents on the table. Not all of them, just the ones that mattered first. Bank records, transfers, dates, amounts. They both leaned in. And slowly their expressions changed. Confusion, then disbelief, then something deeper. "She took this," Mia whispered. "Over time," I said. "Yes." Emily shook her head slightly, like she was trying to reject what she was seeing. "No, there has to be a reason." "There is," I said gently. "But it's not a good one." Silence settled again. Then Mia spoke. "What else?" she asked. I looked at her carefully. "You need to understand something first," I said. "I'm not here to turn you against your mother." "Then why show us this?" she pressed. "Because you deserve honesty," I answered. That landed. You could see it. The difference between accusation and truth. Then something unexpected happened. Mia reached into her bag. "I have something too," she said. She pulled out her phone and pressed play. First it was just background noise. Then Brandy's voice. Clear, sharp, unfiltered. "She'll stay with me," she was saying. "I control the money now. If they want a future, they'll do what I say. Emily's face went pale. Mia didn't look surprised. I recorded it yesterday, she said quietly. I didn't trust her. The recording continued. Words about control, about cutting people off, about using the inheritance as leverage. When it ended, the table felt heavier than before. But something had changed. Not confusion anymore. Clarity. Emily looked at me, her eyes filled with emotion. Dad, she whispered. I met her gaze. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the DNA report. Not the past. Just this. You're my daughter, I said softly. Her lip trembled. I always will be. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't look away. Biology doesn't make a father, she said quietly. You do. Mia reached over and took her hand. And just like that, the most important truth in my life was confirmed. Not by documents, but by choice. The days that followed moved quickly. The legal process continued. The financial evidence was submitted. The conditions of the inheritance were enforced. And Brandy struggled. The property she thought would bring freedom brought pressure. Debt. Maintenance. Legal restrictions she couldn't escape. And every decision she made was monitored. Carefully. Precisely. She tried to regain control. Tried to convince the girls again. Tried to shift the narrative. But it didn't work. Because once people see the truth, they can't unsee it. A few months later, everything settled. The divorce finalized. The accounts separated. The past closed. I left that town quietly. No drama. No final confrontation. Just done. I moved to Denver. A new job. A new environment. A new life. Director position at an aerospace firm. A salary that reflected my experience. And my value. But more importantly, peace. Real peace. The kind you don't have to question. Sometimes late at night I think about everything that happened. Not with anger. Not even with regret. But with understanding. Because in the end, Brandy didn't destroy my life. She revealed it. She exposed everything that was broken, hidden, or false. And once it was all visible, I had the chance to rebuild. The right way. With truth. With clarity. With precision. In my world, every cut matters. Every detail counts. And sometimes, the smallest miscalculation leads to the biggest consequences. Brandy thought she had everything measured perfectly. But she was wrong. She missed the details that mattered most. And in the end, that made all the difference.